We sat down, we looked at the review of it, and we came up with the conclusion that we have two choices: rescind the decision, and with that goes two consequences. He either resigns or he returns to work. Very simple. Very simple. We debated it. We sought legal advice. We sought audit advice. And we prepared our case in terms of meeting our stakeholders, the customers, and to explain to them why we had to go that path. There's the information. Very clear. Thank you. On the next question, have I got any relationship with Oakbay? The answer is no, absolutely no, none. Since you've asked the question on Oakbay, let me talk about Glencoe. The Glencoe discussion started at Escom board long before Mr. Molefe arrived. We were approached, but before I explain that, Glencoe owns the optimum contract that supplies, when we say coal, it's not coal, it's the ground, literally the ground. This has been a design that goes back 50 years. The boilers were specially prepared to receive the ground at Henrina. There are 200 megawatt units and there's 10 of them. That request. Glencoe wants more money for this ground. And there's a clause in that contract called hardship. When the power station was initially built, the contracts are put in place, so they're long-term contracts, 50-year contracts. There's a clause that says if you've got hardship, you can come and plead hardship. And that's exactly the clause they invoked, and they came to plead hardship. Now, I was on the board committee that said to them, Glencoe, just as you've got hardship, we also got hardship. Declined. Goodbye. We're not paying any more money for that coal. And the low price of the coal of Eskom's coal is the reason why Eskom promoted world's lowest cost energy, and we became the world leader. And we want to go back to that position. And that is the reason, sir, I was giving you those primary energy numbers right at the beginning. Eskom is all about coal. We convert coal into electrical energy. The price of coal determines the price of electricity to our customers. And we've got to do everything in our power to make sure that those contracts are not on a runaway. We've got to continue. And Glencoe was very smart to come and ask for a price increase, knowing that the contract's expiring in 2018. So they'll set a new base price for the next 30-year period going forward. So now customers would need to pay that higher price for the next 30-year period. And we were adamant. And they said to us, we will throw in the towel and we'll declare business rescue. The consequences thereof being loss of jobs, but most importantly, in the load shedding scenario, loss of production. We had our contingency plans and we were confident. And we went by the hostage situation of loss of production. That is the Glencoe issue. We've got no relationship with Glencoe or with anyone. It was straightforward supplier-customer communications, and that was the conversation that we had all the time. Let me stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Naidu. The last member of the board, and we are going to give you 1 minute. We are running out of time. There's still other follow-up questions that are coming.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of the Parliament, and colleagues, I'll just go straight to retirement. The application form that we received from Brian was the application for retirement. Number two, I got no personal or direct relationship with the company. Number three, we did support the reinstatement of Brian as the Chief Executive on the basis of his performance, the performance of the organization, the strategy that we put in place going forward, and also from the legal advice that we obtained at the time to say we got those particular options and he can choose it. He shows the application that he wants to come back. And another matter which came up here is the state capture matter. We did look at this particular matter and the things that were said. And the legal opinion that we obtained, it was said these were just allegations, and it was for further investigation. Therefore, we cannot go and ask for review. And that was the advice that we got from the legal opinion initially. And anyone can recall that the chairperson did say we're going to go for review, but the legal opinion that we got, they said it's not the findings. You can only review the findings. Therefore, we could not do that. Therefore, that's why we all agreed to say we can reinstate Brian based on his performance and all the legal advice that we obtained. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give two members. They are going to go on in this order. It's Honorable Gungubele, Honorable Mazone, Honorable Tedi, Honorable Steenhuisen, Honorable Shivambo, and Honorable Singh. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Naidu assisted to confirm something. I think his response to me has confirmed why the parliamentary hearing is necessary. I would have doubted before he spoke. After he has spoken, I'm very clear that I think we need that. Because I just want to say to you, Mr. Naidu, my biggest worry as my first general statement is that both yourself and the chairperson, you don't care about, you don't care about the effect of Brian Molefi's reinstatement with regard to the reputation of Escom. And I've been listening to you, Ngubane. All what you are telling us about are the numbers. In other words, you're saying, if we've got numbers, we've got money, shut up. What's your problem? The balance sheet is healthy. That's what Naidu is saying. The balance sheet is healthy. Shut up the questions of the public about the state of Escom. That's nonsense. You actually said that without using those words. We got the money, shut up, there was no money. You said the same thing about SABC. That when you got there, there was no money. As we speak now, they are struggling to get money. I don't know how long did you leave that place. So all I'm saying, both your answers have actually confirmed why inquiry is needed. Because I guess we don't find each other, we don't sing from the same page. You think that were about money. Two, Minister, I just want to go to the incorporation, what do you call it? Memorandum of Incorporation. Memorandum of Incorporation reads as follows.
2014, 2016.
No, I've got it here. Let me read it. It says, this Memorandum of Incorporation was submitted and adopted by special resolution passed by the shareholder of the government on the 1st July 2016. That's what I'm reading now. It says in 3.6.2, 3.6.2, you'll get the marker. It says the company shall not appoint or remove the chairperson of the board, the group chief executive or group financial whatever, other than as provided for in this MOI. I'll come back to that. It also says in 3.8, the shareholder may direct the company to take any action, that shareholder is yourself, to take any action specified by the shareholder, which is yourself. If the company is if the company is in financial difficulty or is being mismanaged, in other words, got the power articulated in this memorandum. And that meant, Mr. Naidu said that the buck stops with them. And I'm reading this, unless I'm reading Greek here. This is not English, as I understand it. It further says the shareholder, if the company fails to perform its function effectively, the shareholder has a duty to direct. This is how this document is written here. Now, it explains what the shareholder should do if that is failed. Let's go to 14.3.2. 14.3.2. Point 1. The shareholder, that is the process of the appointment and the removal of the group's chief executive officer. It says that the shareholder shall on behalf of the company have the exclusive power in exercising its ownership of control, pursuant to the provision of section 3, to appoint and remove the C as an employee of the company in accordance. This is in your NY. In other words, you are not powerless as articulated here, because if I understand this seems to be saying that you will explain what does this mean. Because it says, I'm not a lawyer, but it says the shareholder has this. But now, having said all that, you say Brian can't clear himself, but in the public protector, it's about Brian and his conduct. But we should clear Brian. And you said, I said I will accept if the legal opinion so agrees. The question now is, did you get the legal opinion? Quickly, the legal opinion by the board. Now, the last point I want to make is that I have a sense that, Minister, you did not exercise your role of oversight in directing Escom, unless you read these things differently. But I'm also disappointed in the general response that we seem not to be equally worried about the general public opinion about the state of protocol of Escom. You want to convince us about finances, and Mr. Naidu said, Brian resigned. So all I'm saying, I do say, based on these responses, an inquiry, parliamentary inquiry, in my view, is required. If it clears you, Babungwane, so be it. I don't think there's a problem. And I think we concur with you on that.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, isn't it lovely to hear what fabulous income Escom has? That means I assume that this application to NERSA will no longer be necessary, and South Africans aren't going to have to be panicking about how they're going to pay increased tariffs, considering that's all Escom ever does, is ask for more and more and more. But all we hear is how fantastic the financial status is of Escom. Yeah. When one looks at Medupi and Kusile, let's not forget the controversy around there, and I refer specifically to the Hitachi deal. That was absolutely unacceptable. Another slap in the face. So when the board members come here and very proudly suggest that they've done nothing wrong, I put it to each one of you board members that you are a shame to the South African nation. And you shouldn't sit here and think that you're doing everything right. Keeping the lights on in this country is your job. It's your only job. And how dare you even think that you should come here and be congratulated for keeping the lights on. You have one job. Chair, I get very angry because when people turn back on a legal opinion that is so obviously flawed, and then Dr. Ngubane says that we treat them like idiots. So I put it to you that you treat us like idiots. How can it be that every legal opinion in the country differs to your legal opinion, but still you choose to accept a legal opinion that no one else agrees with? Minister Brown, did you know this? Because clearly you're being kept in the dark from a lot of things in Escom. I am being sued for a total of 80 million rand.
I actually know that.
Yeah, well, let me get to the point. 30 million rand by Escom, so to your board, 20 million by Coco, and 50 million by Brian Malefi. You have very proudly appointed Cliff Decker-Hofmeyr to investigate Chairperson Coco at the time. This is the very law firm that you have employed to sue me. So, look at the conflict of interest there. The firm that you are employing to sue a member of parliament is also the firm that you are using to do an investigation into. So basically, they're investigating their own client. Ooh, I see a lot of clarity coming out of that investigation. Unacceptable behavior by the board. But still, Minister Brown, you let this board continue. I'm not going to mince my words. Minister Brown, we are being lied to. I think you have been lied to. It is very obvious that Brian Malefi resigned from Escom. The spin that the board is putting on is now actually embarrassing. I'm cringing for you. I'm seeing what the country is seeing and I'm cringing for you. Minister Brown, this board is an embarrassment and a disgrace to South Africa. Please take my advice. Suspend this board with immediate effect.
Thank you, Honorable Sedi.
Chair, I'm highly disappointed with the responses that we received around this particular matter. And I want to make a follow-up with regard to some of the issues that have been raised. And I'm going to read from what one of the papers reported some few days ago. Escom Chief Executive Officer Brian Mulif and Public Enterprises Minister Lynne Brown have both filed affidavits claiming Mulif was on unpaid leave while he was a member of Parliament. And the direct question is, how far is this true? I asked a question earlier, and that question was not entertained, which to me is very, very pertinent in terms of us taking this particular matter forward. Because you seem to be very confident, including the chairperson of the board and the other board members. If we were to pursue this particular case now, do we have a winnable case? Are you ready to take personal responsibility if this case does not go your way? Because we can't continue to use state resources on matters that we know they are not likely to go our way. So two direct questions. How far is this thing through? Are we ready to take personal responsibility if the case does not go our way? Do we have a winnable case now that we are pursuing this particular matter?
Thank you, Honorable Steenhuisen.
Thank you very much.
We'll just give Honorable Singh.
Pass the baton. Great, no problem. Minister, thank you very much, through you, Chairperson, for your responses. Sorry, excuse me, I'm a layman and I'm new in this committee. Can I just get clarity why the 2014 memorandum of MOI was used and not the 2016 one? I'm not clear about why that was the case. There was a 2016 one. The shareholder management bill, I think it certainly would be welcomed, but to be honest with you, Minister, I mean, serving on the programming committee, there's very little chance that bill is going to see the light of day until early next year. And so I think I would ask you what immediate steps outside of the bill you're taking to rectify some of the matters that are identified as problems within that bill. Steps that can be taken now, because the lead time on that bill is massive. Minister, you said that Mr. Molefe has no way of clearing his name. He does have a way of clearing his name. The court was very clear on this in the Congo matter. If you're unhappy with the report of the Public Protector, you're within your rights to take such reports on review. Mr. Molefe, to my knowledge, has not instituted such review proceedings of that report, and is certainly not seeking, and if he's relying on the President to do so, the aspects of the report that the President is seeking to review relates mainly to the remedial action in terms of the appointment of how a judicial commission is appointed thereafter. It doesn't deal with the telephone calls between Mr. Gupta and Mr. Molefe. It doesn't deal with the serious allegations there. And I would put it to you, Minister, that in fact, as long as that report stays in the public domain, and Mr. Molefe does not challenge those findings in court, I would say to you that there has to be an element of truth to that, because if I was a public figure and under such public scrutiny as Mr. Molefe, and I honestly believe that I've been wronged in that report and that those findings were incorrect, I would have been in for a review process months ago. Why has Mr. Molefe not instituted a review proceeding? I can only presume from his inaction and unwillingness to use the mechanisms available to him to clear his name in a court of law as acceptance that there's an element of wrongdoing and guilt on his own behalf. I also think that that's why he left Escom, stands to be said to clear his own name. So I disagree with you. He absolutely has an ability to clear his name. He's not using that mechanism, and and therefore those allegations stand above them. I'd like to ask, I'd like to now address myself, Chairperson, to the board, and particularly Mr. Ngubani. Mr. Ngubani, I've sat in this movie before, as has Mr. Singh. We sat in the SABC inquiry where Professor Maguve, right up until the last minute, told us how wonderful the South African Broadcasting Corporation was, how well managed they were, how they were world leaders in entertainment and in the way they were doing things. And we all know now, with respect, Mr. Ngubani, that that was not the truth, that the SABC was rotten to the core, and that there were fundamental problems with it. And I would advance to you, Mr. Ngubani, that the same applies to Escom. One only needs to open a newspaper on a daily basis, to put on carte blanche on a Sunday night, to see the devastatingly destructive behavior of people within your organization. And so all is not well in the state of Denmark. There is something rotten in the state of Denmark. And I'm not encouraged by what appears to be your naivety and blasé attitude to these shortcomings. You seem to focus completely on your balance sheet, but not on the governance structure within your organization. And I think that is where the failing is. I think there are people within your organization who are corrupt, that are using their positions in your organization for their own benefit and the benefits of others. And your behavior before this committee today does not instill me with confidence that you are the right person to deal with it. You seem to have an approach, well, all's fine, you know, the balance sheet, as long as it chugs along, I don't really care what the rats and mice in the organization are getting onto. That's not what Parliament's about. We're going to hold you accountable for the governance of your organization, your stewardship of public funds. I would say to you that the appointment of Mr. Malefe, and I again reiterate the point, you haven't responded. Once Mr. Malefe raised his hand as a member, to be sworn in as a member of Parliament, he ceased to be a member of Escom or an employee of Escom. There's no ways you can be fish and fowl. You can only be one. You either work for a state-owned enterprise or you're a member of Parliament. You can't be a hybrid of the two. It's impossible. So he left Escom. Even if he hadn't furnished you, as I made the point, with a formal resignation letter, the day he got sworn in and agreed to accept the oath of office and signed it in the presence of a parliamentary official, he became a member of Parliament and was no longer an employee. So I don't then buy the option that was ostensibly on the table that he remain at Escom. It's impossible to remain in something if you had already left the organisation. I would also then say that I believe that the board needs to be looked at very carefully. I think that particular focus needs to be given with Section 76 of the Companies Act. Minister, I would ask that you and your department and maybe the committee can apply itself to this. But it requires members of the board to act with good faith and proper purposes, with diligence and care of service, and in the best interests of the company. I don't think, and you're right, the back does stop with you. I don't think that hiring somebody with significant public charges hanging over their head that have not been cleared, with more charges emerging over that person's conduct at a previous parastatal, namely Transnet, and who can play so fast and loose with the Constitution, as he seems to have done, and to which you, or in your own version, admit, is a fit and proper person to be the CEO of a company. And Minister, I would really recommend to you that you're not going to get far in what you're trying to do with this board. And I would really ask you to consider your options in this regard, because it's going to take you nowhere, and you're going to end up being the fall person for the wrongdoing and lack of due diligence, lack of fiduciary responsibility being perpetuated by these people.
Thank you. Honourable Singh. Yes.
Or was I next?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Firstly, Chairperson, I want to thank you for the manner in which you've been conducting this meeting. And I think it was great that we were able, through the programming committee, to get the Minister and the board to appear before us. And I hope that the Honourable Minister and the board don't leave here with the impression, you know, there's a Latin phrase, veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Because certainly I don't think you've conquered our minds into thinking that all is well with the Escom. There are more questions that we need to ask, Chairperson. The purpose of today's meeting was to receive a briefing by the Minister and the Board of Escom, which I think we've done. We've asked as many questions as we could ask, but like I say, there are many, many, many more questions that we still need to ask. You know, the surprising thing is it reminds me of what my leader said in a debate not so long ago, a motion of no confidence debate. He says, why would we want to destroy this country because of one person? And I ask this question, why would we want to destroy Escom and the good work that they are doing because of one person? Does that one person have so much of influence over the board, over the minister, and over other functionaries in cabinet, and other people who are, as I said, using this as an automatic television, Escom, for themselves? But Chairperson, I think Honorable Gordon asked for some documents, we've all asked for more information, and we reserve our rights as a committee. I want to propose to call the Minister and the Board for a future meeting. And what I'd like to suggest is that we apply our minds as a committee on the way forward. I think there were many suggestions impressing upon the Minister to have her own inquiry, which she's entitled to do, having our inquiry, parliamentary inquiry, but let us apply our minds, because I don't think we will be able to get any more answers that will clear this whole impression that not only the South African public have, or we, but also we have, about why Brian Malifi was paid, unpaid, resigned, retired, etc., etc. It will remain a comedy of errors and a riddle that we will not be able to answer today, but a full investigation will provide us the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Honorable Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few points. The first of which is, when we talk about financials, I think most of us have been around for a while, so we'll remember Enron, Parliamentary, the role of Arthur Anderson as one of the big 4 or 5 accounting firms in the world at the time. And their financials looked pretty good until they started shedding paper. So that's part of the history of financials in the world, and of big entities that take the public for a ride, to put it in a colloquial way. So numbers can speak all sorts of games or stories. And I mean, Dr. Naidu is very proficient at pronouncing on some of those, but remember there's the flip side as well. Clean audit reports. We've seen them in municipalities, we've seen them in departments, but we know auditors, and the public that's listening to this would want to know that auditors only check a sample of transactions. And ultimately, it's that sample that hopefully is representative of what's going on. In the case of Escom, regrettably, there's been a lot in the media. Regrettably from your point of view, fortunately from everybody else's point of view. Now what's fascinating, Chairperson, is that I don't see any litigation against any media about the assertions made by various journalists, various print and other media, very nice diagrams showing connections between all sorts of entities and people, flows of money, etc., etc. Surely, as a board interested in good governance, we would be worried. Is this true? Is there all this hundreds of millions actually flowing in the way that these diagrams actually suggest? If Dr. Naidu and Dr. Ngubane are so proficient in as directors, why haven't they challenged us if these are lies? Otherwise, you have to accept them as the truth. And if that is the truth, then there's some serious questions. And I know part of the problem, Chairperson, is that we don't have the time to sit as a so-called commission on a full-time basis and all the skills to actually go through this in detail. And that's why I repeatedly have said this morning, as have others, and let me put it in a different way now. If there is such a thing as conscience, I think we're too late for that, right? But if there was such a thing as conscience that's operating, that we are handling a major public entity that it belongs to the public of South Africa, then maybe there's a new option that's been opened since last Thursday. When the South African Council of Churches is saying, come and unburden yourself. Come and tell us in confidence, what is it that you've done to undermine public confidence? What is it that you've done that you don't want to declare because there might be legal and other implications? And the faith community is availing itself to any employee, anybody in management, anybody anywhere, to come up and say, let's save our souls as a country. Because the world is watching us, Africa is watching us, and they're looking at, whilst we're praising, on the one hand, our entities, they're looking at how we are allowing those entities to decline in governance terms, and in management terms, and in delivery terms as well. Which then brings up the whole question of credit ratings. I mean, all three agencies have said over the last 18 months, as Minister Brown knows, and the Deputy Minister as well, that the governance and financial management in state-owned entities is one of their major concerns. And that when a body like Escom has guarantees of 350 billion rands, and if there's default in any kind of way by them, by Sandral or others that are related, that's serious consequences for the first time. I don't want to go into that, but I don't think credit rating is one of the plus factors that you want to claim for yourselves right now, in terms of the sovereign. But we'll come back to the particularities in your case as well. Two last points, Chairperson. The first is I think we should call the CEO of the Escom Pension Fund as well, and hear he or she has to say about some of the things that have been said to us. And the last point is our colleague Honorable Ngubela was saying earlier on, the Minister, in fact, in the 2016 MOI, has very significant powers assigned to herself. To hire and fire CEOs, to hire and fire members of the board, of course, with the Alternate Party Group being implemented. And the appeal I want to leave her with is that in the public interest, perhaps some of those powers need to be exercised sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Shaban.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. So, when the Minister made the first submission here, he said that I instructed my legal team to draw my opposition to Part A of the relief sought, and that I set aside my appointment of Mr. Mbifu. I think that is the essence of it. I don't know, maybe she can speak deeper to that she's not opposing the relief sought by the court papers of both the DA and the EFF and other interested parties, that the appointment of Brian is set aside. Is that the clarity, Minister?
Because it's not sought against me. It's not sought against me.
It's sought against the board.
Yes.
No, that's fine. No, I thought that they would be rooted in the broader context. I think that the important issue that we have to speak about much more clearly now is the context in which the Honorable Godan spoke about of what are we dealing with here. We're dealing with a captured CEO of a state company called Primary, who works with the CEO called Mr. Singh, not Mr. Singh from the IFP. Who when they were in Transnet together, they channeled hundreds of CFO. They channeled hundreds of millions of rands to Brilliant Capital Partners, which is a company that is owned by directors who have got co-directorships in Gupta companies. And Brilliant Capital, when both the CEO, Brian Molif, and CFO, Mr. Singh, went to Escom, Brilliant Capital has got work from Escom. They've been receiving fees of hundreds of millions from Escom. That is common cause, and no one can dispute that in terms of what has happened. This is a Gupta company, and in the middle of that, Together Resources, which is owned by the Guptas and Duluzaniso, receives huge coal supply deals from Escom. And as a matter of fact, was standing now with information that says that in a space of 4 months towards the conclusion of the Together deal of coal supplies and trillion benefiting from Escom, Brian Molefe was in Gupta's compound or house 19 times in a space of 4 to 5 months. When Ajay Gupta was interviewed by public protector Chuduma said, he said, no, Brian is a very good friend of mine. He spends a lot of time with us in the house there. The Companies Act, the PFMA, the Memorandum of Understanding, and all the basic directives that give guidance on the ethics that must guide directors of companies prohibit a situation where friends benefit or business partners, friends benefit out of the activities of those particular board members. That is the issue at point now. That is the context that must be providing at all times in terms of what we should do. I agree that we should demand from Escom all the minutes that the Minister Gordon spoke about, but also we should ask as to how many deals did Trillion Capital receive from Escom, and how many deals together received, and what period, what was the process that was followed in terms of what happened. I can tell you today that we know all of us, we're just maybe trying to tiptoe around that. The reason why Brian is imposed back to Escom is because the Guptas want to continue to loot Escom. He was brought to Parliament because the Communist Party says there was an attempt to make him a Minister of Finance. It's a common fact. It's a fact that we cannot dispute. And when the attempt to make him a Minister of Finance to continue with what the South African Council of Churches called the mafia state, when that attempt failed, then he was then imposed back to Escom to continue with the looting project. And then we must fold our arms and act as if we do not know. We must be drawn into some blindness. And when wrongful things are happening currently, I think that we need to provide decisive leadership and stop this pure nonsense. And that's what we're dealing with here. Of a nonsensical family called Guptas who come here to loot our resources by zombifying people who otherwise were going to be good executives in their own right. That is what we're dealing with. Of an extremely corrupt family who use money to buy politicians and who unfortunately control the president of the ANC to instruct people to do wrong things. And then we must now go and waste time in the court processes whose conclusions are quite obvious in terms of what is going to happen. I don't think that we should be running around here and saying, let's give an instruction, maybe we can do that, Chair, as a committee. The minister must not oppose anything that has been sought in court, as the memorandum of understanding gives it the powers. There must not be opposition as well from the Escom board. The appointment of Brian Molefe must be reversed, and then we must then deal thoroughly with the issues that relate to some of the deals that have been signed under Brian Molefe and the CFO were deployed by the Guptas to loot the Escom for their own purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, I just want to remind you that this is a process that we have started. We are still going to continue with the process until we are satisfied. I think also I am not sure if I've heard Escom correctly in the past. It looks like Escom, you'll correct me, honorable members, and even Escom will correct me, is saying the findings of the public protector are not binding. And and they call it allegations. And if I think we can't go back to that in saying the findings of the protector, of the public protector, are not binding. The public protector is a Section 9 institution. So we need to, Chapter 9 institution, my apologies. Chapter 9 institution, and it needs to be respected the way we respect Auditor General. Because it means Escom, you disregard the Concord ruling on the issue of Inganga, and we do not want to go back there. I am not sure, members, if we still need a response from the department, the chairperson and the minister. Minister, do you want to say one word so that we wrap up the meeting?
Chair, I think you should give me fair process.
All right. I give it to you, Minister. You can take your time, Minister. For as long as by 2 o'clock we'll be in the House sittings.
I want to speak of the MOI because I think there's a. When it's it closer? Oh. Where's my water? I'm at your service. Thank you very much, Linda. I do want to just say something to the Honourable Member Singh. There will never be a situation we came, we saw, we conquered. Oh, my mic's not on. We came, we saw, we conquered. Please never see that, because I take for granted the democratic institutions that have been set up in this country to hold us accountable and for checks and balances. I would like to respond to Honourable Member Mazzoni. Not for 1 minute will I not appear before a portfolio committee. If it's not on a Wednesday, the portfolio committee meets on a Wednesday, and it's very difficult for me because it's also Cabinet Day. But the issue for me is that the portfolio committee's direction is an incredibly important one. But I have to say to the Honourable Member Shivambu that you can't reasonably or democratically instruct me to not do this or not do that in terms of the court. I have taken a decision that I will not oppose A, of the court proceedings, and I'll take a review of what I need to do on B. And I mean, that I've done with legal instruction. Let me start by speaking about the MOI, because I think this is very important. And now I am going to quote from my affidavit. You are quoting from a 2016 MOI. Let me just repeat. I speak about a 2016 MOI, and I speak about a 2014 MOI. MOIs are dynamic documents. You can change them in 2 years, in 3 years. You change them as you change the significance and materiality document. That's how you change them. So in 2014, and now I'm quoting from my affidavit, because I'm quoting so that you get it absolutely right. The 2014 MOI did not require the minister to be noted. The 2014 MOI, remember I was appointed in May 2014, did not require the minister to be noted as a party to the employment agreement of the group's chief executive officer. Paragraph 14.3.4 of 2016 MOI requires the minister. The MOI 2016 is the one that I've changed. That because there were so little powers in the 2014 MOI, I changed it in 2016 to give me the powers that the Honourable Member Mondley reads out and the Honourable Member Porter reads out. That's where I changed just check, you've got a 2016 and a 2014 one. So the issue is, and this is where the court has to rule, on the 7th of March 2016, Mr. Molefe and Dr. Ngubane, in his capacity as chair of Escom's board, concluded an executive employment contract, and this was some 3 months before the adoption of the 2016 MOI. So that is, look, I hold a view on it. The 2014 MOI, that Escom says that it has appointed are 2 different MOIs. They're not the same. They're not of one MOI.
But Minister, can you clear the fact that which MOI is at work now? Is it both
Today.
of them, or is it 2016 or
No.
2014?
The MOI for 2016 was passed, I think, in July 2016. So at the moment, as you and I speak, it's July 2016 MOI.
Chairperson, just a point, I'm not entering the debate. If you go to 13.3.2, 2014, 2014, the appointment of the Chief Executive Officer and the FD. It says the shareholder shall appoint the CE from the short list of the candidates provided by the board.
Which 2 calls are you talking about?
2014. 2014. 13.1.
We've got 2, 13.3.2, I think, yeah. That is 2014.
Do you want to respond to it? I'll let Maxi respond to it. But I mean, that's what I had in my affidavit.
Right. Yes, 2014.
No, thanks, Honourable Member. The provision of the old MOI, clause that you're reading, 13.1, the distinction between that and the 2016 one relates to 2 things: the appointment and the contract. Both of them are consistent in terms of the appointment process, but the inconsistency in the 2014 MOI is the issue of the contract. The 2014 MOI does not require the minister to note that contract. The minister participates in the appointment process. The board undertakes a recruitment, and then they note it to the minister. Minister notes to cabinet. But the 2016, the difference is that now minister becomes a party to the contract. So that's the distinction between the 2.
So irrespective.
That is misleading. That is misleading.
Anyway, we let the court judge
if you agree, sorry, I'm not checking, I'm sorry, I'm wrong now. If you agree, if this 2014 says the minister appoints, it doesn't make sense to say the minister has got no interest in the contract. If the minister finally decides who is appointed, it means the minister consistently will be the one to fire. So on the basis of what she has not noted, so there's something seriously inconsistent.
Can Maxi respond?
Yes, thanks. Not necessarily. The case in point now of the reappointment, if you look at the 2 MOIs, they talk to the appointment process. They are consistent on the appointment process. The inconsistency, which has been clarified in the 2016 MOI, is the contracting. The minister is now a party to that contract. But there's consistency. You're right, Honourable Member. Minister participates in the appointment process, even in the 2014. So you're correct on that. In both of them, she appoints. Yes. But in the 2016, it goes further. She's now a party to the contract as well.
Thank you. Give over to the minister to continue.
Look, what also needs to happen, these things are, the way it's written is also complicated for me. because 2014's MOI is not as clear as I think 2016's MOI, and that's the one I have a hand in. I don't have a hand in the 2014 MOI. This is what I inherited. Having said that, I thought I should also talk to the issue of what processes are in place to fix the problems now. I think all the other matters are opinions, but I mean, what processes are in place to fix the matters now? Look, there are a number of processes. When the issue of the number of people who were connected to a particular family came about, we started a different review process, where every 6 months, as opposed to an annual review of conflicts of interest, we do it every 6 months now. So in the process, I think, not related to this necessarily, because I don't know what the reasons were, other than personal, 4 members of Escom's board resigned. So that's happened because of a different process of governance that we're trying to install. The second issue is that we've also started a process where it's not there yet, but we have the CEO appointments in the public sector. They are slightly different than appointments made in the private sector. So for us in the public sector, cabinet approval is also required for appointments of CEO, especially for those entities that are major public entities in terms of Schedule 2 of the PFMA. So that's also something that we are looking at. And that is something to give greater clarity for us just working with the documentation in relation to the MOIs. After this, we hope we don't speak about the 24, not today, but after this process that goes to court and the court rules on it, then we hope we don't have to speak about the 2014 MOI, but we strengthen and speak to the 2016 MOI. The other issue is also external evaluations of board members. Now, normally it's an internal evaluation of board members, and in the last 2 years we've had external evaluations of board members. And the idea there is to give the minister an opportunity before the AGM to be able to rotate members if needs be. And so Escom's AGM, as I said, is at the end of June, beginning of July, sometime. And that process is underway already. But more importantly, there is a systemic problem here. And I'm going back to the SOC reform, and it's not going to happen in this year. I mean, we're not going to have all the ministers having commented, the public at large having commented on the shareholder management bill. It is, but there's a systemic problem in the state managing the state-owned companies. Because with the public sector mind, managing a commercially driven developmental company that belongs to the state is something that we've got to fix in terms of the state-owned company reform process. And that's what I'm hoping will take away the kind of fragmentation, the looseness in the relationship between the shareholder representative, because the state remains a shareholder representative, and the state-owned companies. And I think this, you don't see it immediately, but you see it eventually in terms of the management of state-owned companies. The state-owned companies find it very hard to report to a sector unit, for example, because they are busy doing what they do commercially. And they could chase profits, they chase sustainability, they chase other things. And we are saying they are state-owned companies and they have what is called the developmental agenda as well. So that deals with the issue of state-owned companies. I'm still hoping that in putting together, when I do my budget speech on Thursday, which is supposed to be a surprise, this part, that I will have the investigation into procurement matters in Escom. And that whilst I don't think, I think there's a lot of opinion in the room, we don't all hold the same opinion. I don't hold the same opinion, and I think, thank God, we live in a democracy and we can hold our own opinions about various things. But I would like to see that the state-owned companies perform more optimally than what they are doing now. In fact, I don't see Mr. Gordon here at the moment, but the thing is, we've just come, the DM and I have just come from the credit rating agencies. Now, as much as the Honourable Member Maundley doesn't care about whether we are financially sustainable or not, I care that we're financially sustainable, we are governance, we have good governance and strong governance. Those are important issues to us. And that is what's important for the credit rating agencies too.
That's a misrepresentation, Minister.
Matter of opinion.
That's a misrepresentation.
But it's a matter of opinion, isn't it? There have been lots of misrepresentations. I have to take it. You've got to be strong. Be strong. I'm sorry if it's a misrepresentation, then I'm very sorry. But I would like to say the other one too, be strong. But, you know, Escom does have the highest government guarantee in this country. 350 billion rand, Honourable Member Gordon is right. They've drawn down 200 billion rand. I put a challenge to them, I won't be here, but I put the challenge to them anyway, that they reduce their guarantee over the next 5 years, so that they are not the best. And in 20 years, they've never defaulted. And I didn't say this, but the credit rating agencies told us that the one thing about the company is that it hasn't defaulted on its credit rating in 20 years. And so, to the board, I don't think they should get to that position. I don't think we will be in that position at this point. But I've heard all the comments that members have made. We'll take it into cognizance as the chair guides us in what the next move will be, and the next move in terms of what we should do. And we do subject ourselves to parliamentary scrutiny. I don't think that is without saying. We go, all of us. The DA has taken us to court. The EFF is a joiner there. And we will all be in court on the 30th of May, and maybe by then some of these other things will be a little bit clearer. So on behalf of myself and my team and Escom, we thank you very much for the meeting.
Thank you, Minister. The DM has raised his hand. I'm going to give the DM, and then after the DM will have a closing remark. After the closing remark, we'll release the department, the ministry, and we leave just for 10 minutes as a committee to look at our recommendations and our what do we do, how do we take this forward. Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Members of the Portfolio Committee have obviously raised a number of pertinent issues. The one I'd like to comment on is an issue that the Minister just raised in regard to procurement. And one of the issues that have been raised in regard to the procurement of coal at Escom has been a company that was named the Getter, a company that's closely associated with that we have response.